How's it going, everyone? My name is Jimmy Champane. I hope you're having a great week, and welcome to my spoiler-free review of Child's Play. I'm posting this one as soon as I can, but I'll have my spoiler-filled review up later today, so make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can come back and watch that as soon as I post it. If you're new here, I've been covering this movie pretty extensively, like a video or two a week on it for the past 6 months, and pretty much from the very beginning, I've been feeling like there's something weird going on with it. Whether it's using the same marketing over and over again, and then pulling out some big stops towards the end, or just refusing to show us the doll from pretty much the very start. It just didn't seem like they were confident in this movie, and now that I've seen it, I can definitely see why. We'll start off with the positives though, because this movie does punch out of its weight in a few key areas. The first one being atmosphere. I thought the lighting and the set design was top notch in this movie. I really like that a lot of the scenes are washed in red and blue, and there's a lot of good bokeh effects behind a lot of the characters. The camera work was just great from top to bottom. I never really felt like they dropped the ball there in any sense. I also thought the vast majority of the performances in this movie were great as well. Gabriel Bateman does a really good job carrying the movie as the new Andy. He's a little bit older than Alex Vincent was the first time around, and it totally works, especially considering they made the decision to have Aubrey Plaza play his mom Karen, and they kept her kind of like a single mom who's taking care of him, and she's younger as well. That works really well for the movie. They have a good dynamic, they have good chemistry with each other. Like, he's allowed to swear in his house, and he kind of has the cool mom who's doing everything she can to make things get by. It's a good dynamic. But it was Brian Tyree Henry as Detective Mike Norris who absolutely stole the show for me in this movie. He does a great job with all of his comedic bits. He does a really good job in all the detective moments. I just really wish he had more screen time. He only comes in to kind of advance the plot and just be there, so when things go bad, you have a cop on screen, and they kind of just needed to fill that role because it's a remake of Child's Play after all. I also thought it was a really cool and smart decision to have Mark Hamill playing Chucky because he's a talented voice actor and he's done it a lot. It's not like they're just bringing in some A-list star off the street. They brought in Mark Hamill because he's a good voice actor. The problem is they don't really give him an opportunity to flex his lines. Chucky is featured very prominently in the first half of the movie when he's becoming friends with Andy, and I really like their relationship. It's really funny watching them come into their own together and becoming best friends, but then in the second half of the movie, he's barely in it, and then suddenly he's just evil, and it just didn't really work for me in the second half. Like, when he's good Chucky, he's fine, but when he's bad Chucky, it just doesn't really work. The area where this movie punches way outside its weight though, like in a different league of boxings, or I guess a different weight class I want to say, is Bear McCreary's score. That guy is phenomenal, and we're going to be seeing him a lot more. I mean, he's already done a ton of movies this year. He did Happy Death Day to You, he just did Godzilla King of the Monsters, but Child's Play, that's his best score of the year by far. He uses a bunch of little kid instruments and screaming baby dolls to comprise this really horrific score that elevates every moment it's in. There were a lot of times when the movie started to drag a little bit, and then his score would just slowly build up, and I was like, damn, I'm feeling this. You know, I don't really like what's on screen right now because it doesn't look very good, but man, that score, it's really pushing things forward, and it's getting me to the next key moment. And before we move on to my negatives, I have to praise the use of gore in this movie. It is all practical. There's tons of bloodshed. I'm not going to spoil any of the kills because honestly, they're really good. Like, they rival last year's Halloween movie. One of them does come out of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. That's all I'm going to say. And that kill for me was awesome to see. The aftermath of that was just chef's kiss, like so good. I have to give Lars Klevberg credit there. He really knows how to bring some big gore to the big screen. I thought he did a great job. Where this movie really fell apart for me though was in the technical department. It just isn't put together very well, and it feels rushed and very messy. One thing that really stuck out to me over the past few months with the marketing is that it seemed like Chucky looked like a different doll in every scene, and that is definitely the case in the final product. They said from the start that they were using mostly animatronics like 90% of the time, and then they were going to aid it with CGI when they need to, but that's not what happened here. It's basically 50-50 down the middle between animatronic Chucky, who looks pretty good, like really scary and really ugly, but pretty good. He's kind of endearing. He grows on you as the movie goes on because of his friendship with Andy. And then the other half, you have CGI Chucky, who looks terrible. There are moments when they move Chucky's arm with CGI, like they have the animatronic doll there, and then his arm swings a knife with just CGI, and it just doesn't look right. There are moments when he's jumping at the camera in full CGI, other moments where he's in the background walking, and you can tell that it's not an animatronic. I was really let down by the CGI, and you know, the whole point of the CGI in this movie was to make the animatronics look better when they couldn't get it to work right, and it just didn't help at all, so that was pretty disappointing for me. Child's Play also does a really bad job at following following its own rules. Like at the beginning of the movie, when Chucky is introduced, he has to learn how to do things because he can't connect to the Casling cloud. But then the first kill of the movie, he knows how to operate some pretty heavy machinery, and it's like, how did he know how to do that if he can't connect to the internet? There are tons of different examples of this throughout the movie. I don't want to spoil them, but it just introduces plot points and then doesn't stick with them throughout the movie, and that was really frustrating for me. The relationship Andy has with his friends comes out of nowhere. Like suddenly he has two friends and you don't know where they came from. And as the movie goes on, that group of friends grows for some reason, but none of the characters are introduced. Like it just feels like he kind of glommed on to this group of people and decided to start calling him their friends. There's just no character development, which is weird because all of the story beats between Andy and Karen and Detective Mike Norris are great. But when you move outside of that, things just fall apart, and I don't really know why. This movie also suffers from the phrase death by 1,000 cuts in the sense that there are a ton of little technical issues that just pile and pile on top of each other, and then it gets to a point where you can't ignore them, even though things like the atmosphere, the overall film quality, and the soundtrack are pulling their weight. Like for example, there's a scene where Andy is crying and he has a black eye from a fight he gets in earlier in the movie, but the teardrop running down his face is sort of making the makeup bleed like straight down and then it dries. I don't know how that made it into the movie. Another big issue I had is that this movie's pacing gave me tonal whiplash. It goes from a touching family drama to a horror movie with tons of gore to a comedy at some points, and there were definitely points where I was laughing when I wasn't supposed to be because it was just so comically over the top, and then there were moments when a joke was inserted and I didn't laugh at all because it was between an emotional scene between Andy and his mom. There are tons of moments like that, and I don't know why it's so tonally inconsistent. But guys, despite all those issues, I'd be lying if I said I didn't leave the theater with a smile on my face. I had fun watching this movie, and I think that's what's most important to a lot of you. A lot of you guys have been commenting over the past few months that you can get past the doll looking a little inconsistent between scenes and maybe a little bit of the editing being rough as long as you're gonna have a good time. And I can promise you that if you're looking forward to this movie, I think it will deliver just enough so you'll walk out of the theater laughing and saying you had a good time. But if you walk into this expecting it to be on the same level or better than the original Child's Play or even the second and third movie, I think you're gonna be sorely disappointed because it's just not on that level. I definitely think there were some changes for the better, like the score is phenomenal, Andy being older works really well for the movie, and Chucky being able to connect to the internet surprisingly worked really well for me, and just overall the level of comedy they went for is great. I can't believe I'm saying this, but the mix of horror and comedy is pretty much on the same level as something like Bride of Chucky or Cult of Chucky or Curse of Chucky. It's definitely not as comedic as Seed, but it's definitely not as scary as Child's Play 2 either, and I'm curious to see what you guys think about that. To wrap things up here, Child's Play is the perfect example of a mixed bag. It's very messy, but there's just as much to love as there is to hate, and honestly guys, I came down right in the middle. I had a great time watching it, but as a movie, I don't think it holds up very well, and I don't think I really want to see it again. I'd love to hear what you think though down in the comments below, and remember when you subscribe to hit the notification bell so you get an update every time I upload a video. Anyway guys, my name is Jimmy Champane, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.